Grandma, I feel sick. Can I stay home today? I felt my granddaughter Veronica's forehead and allowed her to stay. I thought she just needed some rest. I never imagined that morning she would save my life. Because around lunchtime, while I was upstairs changing my clothes, Veronica heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. Someone entered the house. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Peeking silently from her room, her heart pounding so hard she thought she would be discovered, my granddaughter saw her own father, my son Benjamin, come in, and she watched him slip something into the pocket of my coat hanging by the door. Something small, something white. Before leaving, he spoke on the phone in a low but clear voice. "It's done," he said. "Tonight you can call the police. That old woman won't understand a thing." Veronica clamped her hand over her mouth to stop herself from screaming. I, upstairs, still didn't know anything. I didn't know that my own son had just condemned me. I didn't know that in a few hours the police would be knocking on my door. I didn't know that everything I had built in 67 years was about to disappear because of a lie planted in the pocket of my green coat. But let me tell you how this all began. Let me take you back to that morning, when I still believed my life was safe. That Thursday morning started like any other. I woke up at 6, I made coffee. The aroma filled the kitchen as always. That smell that has been with me for 40 years, ever since I learned to make it exactly the way I liked it. Strong, no sugar, in the white mug with orange flowers that my mother gave me before she passed away. I went upstairs to wake Veronica for school. I knocked on her door softly. "Grandma," she said in a tired voice, "I feel sick. Can I stay home today?" I went over to her bed. I touched her forehead. It was barely warm, nothing serious. But something in her eyes stopped me, something that wasn't physical pain. It was fear, or worry. I don't know. Sometimes kids hold on to things they don't know how to say. "It's okay, my love," I told her. "You can rest with me today. We'll go down together for breakfast." I made her Earl Grey tea, toast with butter, a little bit of strawberry jam that I made last month when strawberries were cheap at the farmer's market. Veronica sat in her usual chair, the one next to the window. From there, she can see the small garden where I grow my tomato and basil plants. The morning light poured in, creating golden squares on the white tablecloth. We ate in silence, a comfortable silence, the silence of two people who love each other and don't need to fill the space with words. I have lived in this house since I was born, 67 years in the same place. I inherited it from my mother. She inherited it from my grandmother. The yellow walls I painted 20 years ago still look good. The wall clock that chimes every half hour has been here longer than I have. This house is my whole life. I got married here. My son Benjamin was born here. I was left alone here when my husband abandoned us. Benjamin was 3 years old then. I raised him by myself. I worked cleaning houses for 20 years to put him through school, to give him what I never had, to make him someone in life. And he was. He graduated. He got a good job. He married a good woman. They had Veronica. For years, I thought I had done everything right, that my sacrifice had been worth it. Until 2 years ago when Benjamin's wife died in a traffic accident. After that, everything changed. Benjamin asked me to take care of Veronica while he worked. "Of course," I said. "This house has plenty of room. And Veronica needs love. She needs stability, the things I always knew how to give." But since then, Benjamin started to change. He started visiting less, talking less, looking at me differently. 3 months ago, he came with papers. "Mum, I need you to sign this," he told me. "It's for your protection, so that if anything happens to you, the house will be in good hands." I read the papers. I didn't understand everything. The print was small, and my eyes aren't good anymore. But something inside me stopped me, a small voice that told me, "Wait, don't sign yet." And I didn't. Benjamin came back the next week, and the week after, and the one after that. Always with the same papers, always with the same insistence. "Mum, do it for Veronica." But I still didn't sign. The house is worth a lot now. The neighborhood became trendy. Fancy coffee shops and stores opened on every corner. A month ago, a man knocked on my door. He offered me $300,000 for the property. I told him no. This house is not for sale. It never will be. My memories are here. My life is here. I don't care how much money they offer me. That morning, after breakfast, Veronica helped me wash the dishes. Then she went into the living room to watch television. I stayed in the kitchen, straightening up. I put the mugs back on the shelf. I wiped the table. I swept the floor. Everything in its place. That's how I like to live. With order. With calm. I thought about making chicken noodle soup for lunch. Veronica loves my soup. I put in carrots, celery, a little rice. I let it cook slowly until the whole house smells homey. It was almost 11 when I decided to go upstairs and change my clothes. I was still wearing the old cream-colored robe I use every morning. I went up the stairs slowly. My knees aren't strong anymore. Every step reminds me that I am 67 years old, that my body isn't the same. I reached my room. I took off the robe. I put on black pants and a grey blouse, something comfortable to wear around the house. I looked in the mirror. I saw an older woman, wrinkles around her eyes, grey hair all over, age spots on her hands. But I also saw strength. I saw someone who survived, who raised a son alone, who never gave up. I didn't know that while I was upstairs looking in the mirror, downstairs, in the living room, Veronica was hearing something that would change everything. Veronica was sitting on the sofa, watching a movie when she heard the sound. A sound that shouldn't be there. The sound of a key turning in the lock of the front door. She froze. Her grandma was upstairs. Who else had a key to the house? Only her father. But he worked until 6. He never came home at this hour. Never. Veronica's heart started beating faster. Something wasn't right. She quickly turned off the television. She got up from the sofa without making a sound. She tiptoed toward her bedroom door, which was on the first floor, right next to the living room. She went in. She left the door barely ajar, just enough to be able to see. And then she saw him come in. Her father, Benjamin, dressed in his grey work suit. But he was walking differently, looking around, as if he were doing something forbidden, as if he didn't want to be seen. Veronica felt something cold run down her back. Her father went straight to the coat rack next to the door. Her grandma's green coat was hanging there, that old coat she used in the winter. Benjamin reached into the coat pocket. He took something out of his own pocket. Something small. A little white baggie. He put it into her grandma's coat pocket. Veronica didn't understand what was happening, but she knew it was bad. Very bad. Her whole body screamed at her that something terrible was occurring. Benjamin took out his phone. He dialed a number. He waited. Then he spoke in a low voice. "It's done," he said. "Tonight. You can call the police. That old woman won't understand a thing." Veronica felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. The police? What had her father put in her grandma's coat? Why would someone call the police? Her hands were shaking. She covered her mouth to stop herself from making any noise. Tears started to roll down her cheeks. Her own father. Her father. The man who was supposed to protect her. who was supposed to protect Grandma. He was doing something horrible, something unforgivable. Yes, Benjamin continued on the phone. The house will be free in 1 week. 2 maximum. No one will believe a 67-year-old woman with drugs in her pocket. Social services will take the kid, and I'll have the house. $300,000, Monica, divided between us two. $150,000 for each of us. Enough to start over. Veronica closed her eyes. Drugs. Her father had put drugs in her grandma's coat. He was going to have her arrested. He was going to take her house. He was going to destroy everything. And she, Veronica, would be taken somewhere far away from the only person who truly loved her. No, she heard her father say. She doesn't suspect anything. She still won't sign the papers, but it doesn't matter anymore. When they arrest her for drug possession, she'll lose all her rights. A judge will give me the house automatically. It's perfect. Silence. Then a laugh. A laugh Veronica had never heard before. Cold. Empty. I'll see you tonight, Benjamin said. You make the anonymous call at 9 o'clock. I'll be here at the moment. 9 hours, 30 minutes, right when the police arrive. I'll act surprised. The worried son. No one will suspect. Benjamin hung up the phone. He put it in his pocket. He looked around one last time. He smiled, a small, cruel smile. Then he left the house, closing the door softly behind him. Veronica stayed in her room, shaking, crying silently. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to process what she had just seen. Her father, the man who used to take her to school when she was little, the one who taught her how to ride a bike, the one who hugged her when she had nightmares. That very man had just betrayed his own mother, the woman who raised him alone, who sacrificed everything for him. Veronica wiped her tears. She took a deep breath. She had to think. She had to do something. She couldn't let this happen. Grandma Edith was everything to her. After her mother died, Grandma had taken her in. She had given her love, security, a home. Grandma helped her with her homework. She made her favorite food. She told her stories before bedtime. She taught her how to cook, how to sew, how to be strong. She couldn't lose Grandma. She couldn't. She came out of her room carefully. She went straight to the coat rack. She looked at the green coat. Her hand trembled as she reached for the pocket. She put her fingers in. She felt something, a small plastic baggie. She pulled it out. It was the size of her thumb. Inside was white powder. Veronica didn't know much about drugs, but she had seen things at school. She had heard stories. This was cocaine. Or something worse. Her father had put this here. Her father was going to have the police find this. Her father was going to destroy Grandma. She hid the baggie in her pocket. She had to think fast. She had to find a way to protect Grandma. But how? If she told her what she saw, Grandma might not believe her. Or worse, she would believe her but wouldn't know what to do. Grandma was strong, but she also trusted people, especially her son. She always spoke of him with pride. My Benjamin, she would say, my hard-working son, my good son. How could she tell her that this good son was betraying her in the worst way possible? Upstairs, Edith finished getting dressed. She walked down the stairs slowly. Veronica was already back on the sofa, with the television on, as if nothing had happened. But Edith knew her well. She noticed something different about her granddaughter. Red eyes, restless hands. Are you okay, my love? I asked. Veronica nodded quickly. Yes, Grandma. It's just the movie. It's sad. Edith wasn't convinced, but didn't push it. Sometimes children need space. I'm going to start lunch, I said. Chicken noodle soup? Veronica tried to smile. Yes, Grandma. I love your soup. Edith went to the kitchen. She took out the big pot. She put water on to boil. She started chopping vegetables, carrots, celery, onion. The knife against the wooden cutting board made a rhythmic sound, a familiar sound, a sound that always calmed her. But today there was something strange in the air. I didn't know what. I just felt that something wasn't right. I looked toward the living room. Veronica was sitting very still, too still, staring intently at the television but not really watching. In the living room, Veronica was thinking so fast her head hurt. She needed a plan. She needed proof. Her word against her father's wouldn't be enough. No one would believe a 14-year-old girl. She needed something more, something concrete, something that couldn't be denied. And then she had an idea. Her phone. She had an old phone that Grandma had given her last year. It wasn't fancy, but it had a camera. It had a voice recorder. If her father came tonight when the police arrived, she could record him, record his reaction, his act. And maybe, just maybe, he would say something to incriminate himself. But that wasn't enough. She needed more. She needed the call that the woman named Monica would make at 9 o'clock at night, the anonymous call reporting Grandma. If she could record that call too, if she could prove that the whole thing was a plan, then they would have real proof that the police couldn't ignore. But how could she record a call that wouldn't even come to this house? Monica would call the police directly. Veronica kept thinking. Her father had said he would come at the moment 9 hours 30 minutes, right when the police arrived. That meant the police would arrive around that time, which meant Monica's call would be made shortly before, at 9 o'clock or a little after. Enough time for the police to receive the report, process it, and send a patrol car. Veronica grabbed her phone. She searched the internet. How to record calls, how to get proof, how to protect someone from a trap. She read article after article, forum after forum, and slowly a plan began to form in her mind. Lunch passed in a tense silence. I served the chicken noodle soup in 2 deep bowls. Steam rose, creating small clouds over the table. Veronica ate slowly, too slowly. She moved her spoon without enthusiasm. She barely tasted it. I watched her from my side of the table. Something was wrong with her. Something more than a simple upset stomach. Are you sure you're okay, my love? I asked again. She looked up. Her brown eyes looked at me with a strange intensity. Yes, Grandma. I'm just tired. I nodded. It's okay. After lunch, you can go rest in your room. We finished eating. Veronica offered to wash the dishes, something she never did without me asking. No, my love, I'll do them. Go rest. She hesitated. Then she nodded. She went up to her room. I watched her walk away. Her shoulders slumped, her step slow. My granddaughter was suffering from something, and I didn't know what it was. It hurt me not to be able to help her. It hurt to feel useless. I washed the dishes in silence, warm water over my hands, the soap lathering, my thoughts flying to dark places, to worries I couldn't name. Upstairs, Veronica closed her bedroom door. She sat on her bed. She took the little white baggie out of her pocket. She looked at it. It was so small, so insignificant. But it had the power to destroy everything, to take away her grandma, to send her to an orphanage or foster care, to hand her father $300,000 stained with betrayal. She couldn't allow it. She wouldn't. She put the baggie in the deepest drawer of her dresser, underneath her winter clothes, where no one would look for it. Then she took out her phone. She had to do something. She had to act fast. She only had a few hours before everything exploded. First, she needed to better understand her father's plan. She remembered the phone conversation. The woman was named Monica. She would call the police at 9 o'clock. She would make an anonymous report. She would say that there were drugs at this address, that an old woman was keeping them. The police would come. They would search. They would find the baggie in the green coat. They would arrest Grandma. Benjamin would arrive, acting surprised. The worried son. He would take custody of Veronica. He would take control of the house. He would sell it. He would keep the money. All so simple. All so cruel. Veronica started writing. She opened the Notes app on her phone. She wrote down every detail she remembered, the exact time her father entered, what he said on the phone, word for word, the name Monica, the $300,000, the plan for the anonymous call, everything, every small detail. Because she knew that when the time came, she would need to remember exactly what happened. She couldn't make a mistake. One mistake, and everything would fall apart. Then she thought about her next step. She needed more than her notes. She needed real proof. Audio recording, video, something tangible that the police couldn't ignore. But how? Her father wouldn't return until the evening, and when he did return, it would be with the police. He wouldn't say anything incriminating in front of them. He would be the perfect son, worried about his mother, surprised by the drugs. He would act so well that she herself would almost believe him if she hadn't seen what she saw. Then something occurred to her. Her father had talked to Monica. That woman existed. That woman would make the call. And if Veronica could find out who Monica was, maybe she could stop the call, or record her, or something. She opened the drawer of her nightstand. She took out an old notebook. She started making a list of everything she knew about Monica. 1. She knew her father. 2. She was involved in the plan. 3. She would receive $150,000. 4. She would make the call to the police. 5. Her father had said, "I'll see you tonight," which meant Monica would come here, to this house, tonight. Veronica felt a chill. Monica would come. She would be here. And that meant an opportunity to confront her, to record her, to get her to admit the plan. But it was dangerous, very dangerous. She was only a kid. Monica was an adult willing to commit a crime, willing to destroy an innocent old woman for money. What would stop her from hurting a child, too? But she had no choice. She couldn't go to the police before. She didn't have proof, only her word. And her word meant nothing without evidence. She couldn't tell Grandma. Grandma would get scared. Maybe she would confront Benjamin, and he would deny everything. He would change the plan. He would run away. No, she had to do this alone. She had to be brave. For Grandma. For both of them. Downstairs, I finished washing the dishes. I dried everything. I put everything in its place. Then I sat on the living room sofa. I turned on the television. But I wasn't paying attention to what I was watching. My mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about Benjamin, about how he had changed, about how he insisted on the papers, about how he looked at me lately, as if I were an obstacle, as if my existence bothered him. It hurt me to think that way about my own son, the child I raised, the man who was supposed to love me forever. But something inside me was warning me, something I didn't want to hear but couldn't ignore. I remembered the last time he came with the papers, 2 weeks ago. He walked into the house with a brown folder. "Mum, we have to talk," he said. He sat across from me at this very table. He opened the folder. I need you to sign this today. It's urgent. Why is it urgent? I asked. Because it is. Because I need to protect you. Protect me from what? He sighed, frustrated, impatient. Mum, you're 67 years old. You're not young anymore. If something happens to you, if you get sick, if you lose your mind, I need to be able to make decisions for you. For your own good. For Veronica's good. I read the papers again. They said I was giving him legal power over all my properties, over my house, over my bank accounts, over everything. They said he could make medical decisions for me, financial decisions, life decisions. And I would have no voice, no vote. I would be completely under his control. I'm not signing this, I told him. Why not? Because I don't trust this. You don't trust me? The papers, Benjamin. I don't trust the papers. He stood up. Angry. You're stubborn. A stubborn old woman who doesn't understand what's good for her. And he left, slamming the door. Since then, he hadn't been back. He hadn't called. He hadn't asked about Veronica. Nothing. As if he had erased us from his life. And I wondered if I had done the right thing, if my distrust was justified, or if it was just the fear of an old woman seeing ghosts where there were none. Now, sitting on my sofa, with the television on, showing images I wasn't watching, I wondered if my instinct had been trying to tell me something. If that small voice that stopped me from signing knew something my conscious mind didn't want to accept. The hours passed slowly, afternoon turned into night. The sky outside darkened. I turned on the lights in the house. Veronica came down around 6. Are you hungry? I asked. A little. I made turkey and Swiss sandwiches, nothing elaborate. We ate in front of the television. Veronica was still quiet. I was too. Each of us lost in our own thoughts. Each of us carrying secrets we weren't sharing. She knew what was coming. I only felt that something bad was approaching. At 7 o'clock, Veronica said she had homework. She went up to her room again. I was left alone in the living room. It started raining outside. Soft drops against the windows. The sound had always seemed calming to me. But not tonight. Tonight, the sound of the rain felt like a warning, an alert, as if the sky itself knew something terrible was about to happen. Upstairs. Veronica wasn't doing homework. She was getting ready. She checked her phone. The battery was at 100%. Good. She tested the voice recorder. It worked perfectly. She tested the camera. It also worked. She put the phone on silent mode. She couldn't risk it ringing at the wrong moment. Then she dressed completely in black. Black pants, black sweatshirt. If she had to hide in the shadows, she needed to be invisible. It was 8 o'clock. 1 more hour. 1 hour before hell began. Veronica sat on her bed. She took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking. She was scared. Very scared. But she also had determination. No one would take away her grandma. No one would destroy her home. Not even her own father. Especially her own father. Because he should be protecting them. And instead, he was betraying them. And that was unforgivable. At the moment, 8 hours 30 minutes, the doorbell rang. I stood up from the sofa, surprised. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the window before opening. It was Benjamin. My son was standing in the rain without an umbrella. The water soaked his grey suit. Benjamin, I said as I opened the door. What are you doing here? Hello, Mum. I need to talk to you. He walked in without waiting for an invitation. He shook the water from his hair. He left a trail of drops on the entryway floor. I looked at him, confused. I thought you were mad at me, because of the papers. He smiled. a strange smile. Let's forget that, Mum. I came to apologize. You were right. I shouldn't have pressured you. Something in his voice didn't sound sincere. But he was my son. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think he had come in peace. Ben, sit down. I'll make you coffee. You're soaked. He shook his head. No, Mum. I don't want coffee. I just want to talk. We sat in the living room, he on the armchair, I on the sofa. The television was still on, but I turned down the volume. Benjamin looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. How is Veronica? He asked. Fine. Upstairs doing homework. Can I see her? Later. Let her concentrate. Upstairs. Veronica had heard the name. She had heard her father's voice. She peered down the stairs. She saw her father sitting in the living room with Grandma. It was early. Too early. He was supposed to come at the moment it's chacun. It's. Why had he arrived an hour early? Something didn't add up. Veronica felt panic. The plan was changing, and she wasn't prepared. She grabbed her phone. She walked down the stairs silently. She stayed in the hallway, listening, ready to record anything that could serve as proof. Mum, I need to ask you for something, Benjamin said. Anything, son. I need money. Money? For what? I have debts. Big debts. If I don't pay them soon, they're going to hurt me. How much do you need? $50,000. I froze. $50,000. It was almost everything I had saved. The money I kept for emergencies, for my old age, to leave something for Veronica when I died. Benjamin, I don't have that much money available. Yes, you do. I know. It's in your savings account. You can take it out tomorrow. How do you know how much I have in my account? He tensed up. I just know. Mum, please. I'm desperate. They are bad people. If I don't pay them, they'll hurt me. Maybe they'll hurt Veronica too. My heart raced. Is Veronica in danger? She could be, if I don't pay. But if you give me the money, everything will be resolved. Everything will go back to normal. I looked him in the eyes, looking for the truth, looking for my son. But what I saw scared me. There was something cold in his gaze, something calculating, something I didn't recognize. I can't give you that money, Benjamin. What? Not like this. Not without better understanding what's going on. Who are these people? Why do you owe them? That doesn't matter. Just give me the money. No. He stood up from the armchair. His voice rose in volume. Are you telling me no? I'm saying I need more information. Information. Always with your questions. Always distrusting. I'm your son. Isn't that enough? Precisely because you are my son, I need to understand. If you're in trouble, I want to really help you, not just by giving you money. Benjamin walked toward the window. He stood looking out at the rain, his hands in his pockets, his back rigid. Veronica, from the hallway, was recording everything with her phone. The audio wasn't perfect, but the conversation was audible. Her father was asking for money, lying about debts, pressuring Grandma. It was another layer of his plan, another form of manipulation. If Grandma gave in and gave him the money, perfect. If she didn't give in, then Plan B would come. The drugs, the police, the house. You know what, Mum? Benjamin said, turning around. Forget it. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. Son, please don't leave like this. He walked toward the door. I followed him. Benjamin, wait. Let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. You were always the same. Stingy. Selfish. I gave you my life. I raised you alone. I sacrificed everything for you. And now you tell me I'm selfish because I won't give you $50,000 just like that. He opened the door. The rain poured in heavily. You're going to regret this, Mum. I promise you. He left. The door closed with a bang that echoed throughout the house. I stood in the entryway, shaking, not from the cold, but from fear. My son's words sounded like a threat. You're going to regret this. What did that mean? What was he going to do? Veronica came out of the hallway. Grandma, are you okay? I turned around. She was pale. She had heard everything. Yes, my love. I'm fine. It was just an argument. I went back to the living room. I sat down. My legs wouldn't support me. Veronica sat down next to me. She took my hand. It was small, warm, comforting. Grandma, I have to tell you something. I looked at her. Her eyes were full of tears. What is it, my love? Dad came today, when you were upstairs. I saw him. He put something in your coat, in the pocket, something bad. And he spoke on the phone. He said they're going to call the police tonight, that they're going to blame you, that they're going to take your house. I couldn't breathe. What? Veronica started crying. I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have told you sooner. But I was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't believe me. Afraid he would do something worse. I hugged my granddaughter. She was sobbing against my chest. I was trying to process what I had just heard. My son. My own son. He had sneaked into my house. He had planted something in my coat. He was going to call the police. He was going to have me arrested. For something I didn't do. For something he put there. The world was spinning beneath me. Nothing made sense. Nothing was real. Where is it? I asked in a broken voice. Where is what he put in my coat? I have it. I hid it. In my room. Go get it. Now. Veronica ran upstairs. I stood up. I went to the coat rack. I checked the green coat. The pockets were empty. Veronica came down with a small white baggie in her hand. She placed it on the coffee table. I looked at it without touching it. It was small, almost insignificant. But I knew what it was. Drugs. My son had put drugs in my house, in my coat, to incriminate me, to destroy me. Tears began to stream down my cheeks. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But it was true. My son had betrayed me in the worst possible way. What are we going to do, Grandma? Veronica asked. Her voice was small, scared. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down, trying to think clearly. I don't know, my love, but we have to act fast. If what you're saying is true, the police are going to come tonight. Veronica nodded. Dad said a woman named Monica would make the call at 9 o'clock. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was the moment, 8 hours, 45 minutes. We had 15 minutes to decide what to do, 15 minutes to save our lives. Think, Edith, think. If the police came and found the drugs, they would arrest me. It wouldn't matter if I said they weren't mine. No one would believe me. An old woman with drugs in her house. I would look guilty, and Benjamin would show up later, acting surprised, the concerned son. But if the drugs weren't here when the police arrived, his plan would fail. They needed to find the drugs for the plan to work. Without drugs, there was no crime. Without crime, there was no arrest. Without arrest, there was no way to take my house. We have to get rid of this, I said, pointing to the baggie. How? Veronica asked. Can we flush them down the toilet? No. They might check it. The drains. Everything. We have to get them out of the house completely. Veronica thought for a moment. We can bury them. In the garden. No one will see us in the rain. It was risky, but we had no choice. Okay, let's go. I grabbed the baggie with a kitchen towel. I didn't want to leave my fingerprints on it. We went out to the backyard. The rain was falling heavily. We were soaked in seconds. I dug a small hole near the tomato plants. I buried the baggie deep. I covered the hole with dirt. Veronica helped me tamp it down. When we finished, our hands were covered in mud. Our clothes were dripping water. But the drugs were no longer in the house. We came in. We quickly cleaned up. We changed our clothes. It was the moment, 8 hours, 55 minutes. 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, someone would call the police saying I had drugs. And the police would come, and they wouldn't find anything. And then what? What would happen when Benjamin realized his plan had failed? What would he do? The answer terrified me. But there was no turning back. We could only move forward. We could only fight. We sat in the living room waiting, Veronica next to me, I with my hands clasped in my lap. The clock struck 9 o'clock. Somewhere in the city, a woman named Monica was dialing the police number. She was saying that there were drugs at this address, that an old woman was keeping them, that it was urgent. I could imagine her voice. Cold, calculating, lying easily, and the police officers on the other end taking notes, sending a patrol car, preparing to come and destroy my life. How long do you think they'll take? Veronica asked. Her voice was trembling. I don't know, my love. 20 minutes, maybe 30. She nodded. Grandma, I'm scared. Me too. But we're going to be okay. We have to be strong. We have to trust that the truth will come out. Veronica looked at me with those brown eyes so much like mine. What if they don't believe us? What if they think we're lying? Then we'll keep fighting. I won't let them take what is mine. I won't let them take you away from me. Never. The minutes passed slowly. Every second felt like an hour. The rain continued to fall outside. The sound against the windows was the only thing breaking the silence. I thought about Benjamin, about the baby I had held in my arms 35 years ago, about the boy who hugged me when he had nightmares, about the young man who graduated from college thanks to my effort. Where had that child been lost? At what moment did he turn into this? At what moment did love turn into greed? Maybe it was always like this. Maybe I didn't want to see it. I remembered small moments over the years, moments that seemed insignificant at the time. When he was 10 and stole money from my wallet. He lied to me. He said he hadn't done it. But I found the bills hidden in his room. When he was 17 and wrecked my car. He lied then too. He said someone else had hit it while it was parked. But a neighbor told me the truth. Benjamin had been racing with his friends. There were always lies. There was always selfishness. But I justified it. He's young. He'll mature. He'll change. He never changed. At the moment, 9 hours, 25 minutes, we heard sirens. Distant at first. Then closer, closer and closer, until they stopped in front of my house. Red and blue lights illuminated the living room walls. Veronica grabbed my arm. They're here. Yes, they're here. I took a deep breath. I stood up. I smoothed out my blouse. I prepared for what was coming. The doorbell rang, loudly, insistently. I opened the door. 2 police officers were standing in the rain, an older man in uniform and a younger woman next to him. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Officer David Miller. We received a call about suspicious activity at this address. Can we come inside? Of course, officer. Come in. They came in, shaking off the water. They looked around. The house was tidy, clean, as always. Do you live alone, ma'am? Officer David asked. No, I live with my granddaughter. She's 14 years old. She's in the living room. Anyone else? No, just the two of us. The officer nodded. The woman officer took out a notepad. She started taking notes. Ma'am, are you aware of any illegal substances in this house? No, of course not. I've never had anything like that. Would you be willing to let us search? Yes, search whatever you need. I have nothing to hide. The two officers looked at each other. They seemed surprised by my cooperation. Perhaps they expected resistance. Perhaps they expected nervousness. But I was calm, because I knew they wouldn't find anything. The drugs were buried in the garden under the rain, where no one would look for them. They began to search. The living room first. They lifted the sofa cushions. They looked under the furniture. Nothing. Then the kitchen. They opened cabinets. They checked the pantry, the refrigerator. Nothing. They went to the dining room, to the bathrooms, to the bedrooms. Everything meticulously, everything carefully. I followed them. Veronica stayed in the living room, sitting, quiet, with her hands in her lap, just as I had been minutes before. Half an hour later, the officers came down the stairs. We didn't find anything, ma'am, Officer David said. He looked confused. Maybe it was a false call, a bad joke. Or someone got the wrong address. I looked him directly in the eyes. Officer, may I ask you something? Sure. Who made the call? I can't give you that information. It was anonymous. But someone said I had drugs here. Someone lied. Someone wants to harm me. Doesn't that seem strange to you? The officer sighed. Yes, it is strange. I'm going to report this. We will investigate who made the call. If someone is trying to frame you, we will take action. The officers left. I closed the door behind them. I leaned against it. My legs were shaking. Veronica ran to me. She hugged me. We did it, Grandma. They didn't find anything. Yes, my love, we did it. But this isn't over. When Benjamin finds out, he'll come back. He's going to be furious. He'll want to know what happened. And we have to be prepared. Veronica nodded. I recorded the conversation from a while ago, when he asked for the money. It's on my phone. Good. That might help us. But we need more. We need proof that he put the drugs here. As if I had summoned him with my words. We heard a key in the door. Veronica and I looked at each other. It was him. Benjamin burst in, furious. His eyes first searched for the police officers, but they were gone. It was just us. What happened? He asked. His voice was a growl. Where are they? They left, I said calmly. They didn't find anything, because there is nothing. He approached me. His face was red, his fists clenched. That's impossible. I put them there myself. They're in your coat, in the pocket of the green coat. The silence that followed was dense, heavy. Benjamin realized what he had said, what he had just admitted. He tried to backtrack. I thought... Someone told me... No, Benjamin. You said it clearly. You put them there. You brought drugs into my house. You called the police. Or had someone call. All to take my house. To rob me. Your own mother. He took a step back. It's not like that. You're confusing things. Crazy old woman. I'm not confused, and I'm not alone. Veronica heard you this morning. She saw you come in. She saw you put the baggie in my coat. She heard you talk on the phone with Monica. Benjamin looked at Veronica. She looked back at him, without fear, with disappointment, with sadness, but without fear. You, he said, you ruined everything. You're just a nosy kid. I don't regret anything, Veronica said in a firm voice. I was protecting Grandma, something you should have done. Benjamin laughed, a bitter laugh, full of venom. Protect her. She doesn't need protection. She needs to disappear. She's old, useless. She's taking up a house worth $300,000. Money that should be mine. I'm her son. I deserve it. You don't deserve anything, I said. My hands were trembling, but my voice was firm. I gave you everything. My youth, my energy, my money. I raised you alone. I sacrificed everything for you. And now you want to rob me. You want to destroy me. You are not my son. My son died a long time ago. You are just a stranger, a greedy, cruel stranger. Benjamin looked at me with pure hatred. Fine, if that's what you want. I'll get that house anyway. There are other ways. I can have you declared incompetent. I can say you're sick, that you can't take care of yourself, much less a child. They'll take Veronica away from you. They'll put you in a nursing home, and I'll have what's mine. Go ahead, I said. Try it. But I'm warning you about something. Veronica recorded everything. Your conversation this morning, your confession just now. Everything is on her phone. And if you try anything against us, that recording goes straight to the police. Benjamin turned pale. You're lying. Veronica raised her phone. On the screen, the counter of a recording in progress could be seen. She had been recording since he walked in. Every word, every admission, every threat, everything documented, everything saved. Irrefutable proof of his betrayal. Get away from us, I said. Don't ever come back. Don't call. Don't write. You don't exist to me. And if anything happens to Veronica or me, that recording will reach the authorities automatically. Veronica made sure of that. So go. Go and don't come back. Benjamin looked at us, first at me, then at Veronica, his daughter, his own blood. I saw the moment something broke in him, the moment he realized he had lost, that his plan had failed, that he wouldn't have the house or the money, not even the love of his family, because he had destroyed everything for greed. He turned around, he walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped. He didn't turn around. He just spoke. You're going to regret this, both of you. He left. The door closed. The sound echoed in the empty house. Veronica and I stood in the middle of the living room, shaking, crying, hugging each other. We had won this battle, but we knew the war might not be over. That night we didn't sleep. Veronica and I stayed awake in the living room with all the lights on. Every sound startled us, every drop of rain against the window, every creak of the house. We were afraid Benjamin would come back, afraid he would bring someone, afraid his last threat wasn't just words. I sat on the sofa with a cup of tea I didn't drink. It grew cold in my hands. Veronica was curled up next to me with her phone, checking the recording again and again, making sure it was complete, that everything was heard clearly, that it would be enough to protect us. Grandma, we should go to the police first thing tomorrow morning, she said. Take the recording. Tell them everything. You're right, but we have to be careful. Your father knows people. He has contacts. If we go to the wrong officer, he could get away with it. We need to go straight to the station, file a formal report, make sure everything is recorded. Veronica put away her phone. She made a backup copy of the recording in the cloud, another in my email, and another on a USB drive she found on her desk. We couldn't risk losing the only proof we had. While we waited for dawn, I thought about everything that had happened, about how my life had taken such a terrible turn in a matter of hours. This morning I had woken up believing that my biggest problem was Veronica feeling sick. Now I knew that my own son had tried to destroy me, that he had been willing to see me arrested, to take everything away from me, to separate me from my granddaughter, for money, for a house, for pure greed. My chest hurt, a physical pain, as if someone had ripped out my heart, because in a way they had. My son had ripped out my heart. I remembered the day he was born. It was a difficult delivery, 30 hours of pain. But when I finally held him in my arms, it was all worth it. He was perfect, small, with his little eyes closed and his tiny hands clenched into fists. I looked at him and thought, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to love you with every fiber of my being. I'm going to protect you from the world. And I did. For 35 years I did. I worked 2 jobs. I cleaned houses until my hands bled. I skipped meals so he could eat. I went without heat in the winter to pay for his school. I gave everything, absolutely everything, and he paid me back with betrayal. Where did I go wrong? I asked out loud. Veronica looked at me. You didn't go wrong, Grandma. He went wrong. You gave him love. You gave him opportunities. But some people simply choose to be bad. It's not your fault. I wanted to believe her, but the doubt gnawed at me. Maybe I spoiled him. Maybe I gave him too much, or too little. Maybe I should have been stricter, or more affectionate. Maybe if his father hadn't abandoned us, everything would be different. Maybe Benjamin needed a father figure, someone to teach him how to be a real man, a man with honor, with values, with respect. But there was no point thinking about the maybes, about what could have been. The reality was this: my son had betrayed me, and I had to protect myself, protect Veronica, make sure he couldn't harm us anymore. The sky began to lighten around 6 o'clock in the morning. The rain had stopped. Birds began to sing outside. A new day, a day we would face together. We got up. We showered. We dressed in clean clothes. I made strong coffee, toast, a simple but necessary breakfast. We needed strength for what was coming. At the moment, 7 hours, 30 minutes, we left the house. We took a taxi to the Central Police Station. It was a large, grey, concrete building, cold, intimidating. But we walked in with our heads held high. We approached the counter. A young officer was sitting behind a desk full of papers. Good morning. How can I help you? I need to file a complaint, I said. Against my son, for attempted fraud, for conspiracy, for trying to frame me with drugs that he himself planted in my house. The officer looked up. He looked at us more closely. When did this happen? Yesterday. And we have proof, audio recordings, witnesses. The officer took us to a small room. We sat across from a metal table. He took out forms, a recorder. He began to ask questions. We told him everything, from the beginning, from when Veronica felt sick and decided to stay home, to Benjamin's visit that morning, the drugs he planted, the phone conversation Veronica overheard, the anonymous call to the police, Officer David's visit, Benjamin's return, his confession, everything, every detail. The officer took notes. His expression changed, from skepticism to surprise, from surprise to indignation. "Do you have the recordings?" he asked. Veronica took out her phone. She showed him the files. The officer listened to them, in silence, attentively. When he finished, he sighed. "This is serious, very serious. Your son committed several crimes: possession with intent to distribute, even if they were planted; conspiracy to commit fraud; false call to the police; intimidation; threats. He could face years in prison." I felt a lump in my throat. Years in prison. My son. In jail. Part of me wanted to stop everything, forget what happened, forgive him, let him go. But the stronger part of me knew I couldn't, that I had to keep going, for Veronica, for me, for all the women who have been betrayed by their own children and didn't have the courage to report it. "I want to proceed with the complaint," I said. My voice didn't tremble. I was determined. The officer nodded. "I'm going to call a detective. He will take your official statement. We will also need the location of the drugs." "We buried them," Veronica said. "In the garden, under the tomato plants. We can show you exactly where." The officer made a call. Minutes later, an older man in civilian clothes walked in. "Detective Smith," he introduced himself. We told the story again, this time in more detail. The detective asked specific questions. "What time exactly did your son enter? Which hand did he use to put the drugs in the coat? How many minutes was he in the house? Can you describe exactly what he said on the phone?" We answered everything as best we could. Veronica was incredibly precise. She remembered every detail, every word, every gesture. Her photographic memory saved us. The detective was impressed. "You are very observant, young lady," he told her. "You could be a detective someday." Veronica smiled slightly, a flash of pride in the midst of the pain. The detective said he would send a team to recover the drugs, that they would analyze the fingerprints on the baggie, that they would investigate Monica, that they would look for the anonymous call record, that they would build a solid case against Benjamin. But he also warned us. "This is going to be difficult for you. Family trials always are. Your son will have the right to defend himself. He will hire lawyers. He will try to turn the situation around. He will say that you are framing him, that the recording is edited, that Veronica is lying. You will have to be prepared for that. You will have to be strong." "We are ready, Ver," I said. "We have been strong all our lives. This won't be different." The detective smiled, a sad but understanding smile. "I know, Ma'am. I see it in your eyes." We left the station 3 hours later. We were exhausted, physically and emotionally. But we also felt something like relief. We had taken the first step. We had filed the complaint. Justice was now in motion. We didn't know how long it would take. We didn't know what would happen. But at least we had fought. We hadn't stayed silent. We hadn't allowed Benjamin to get away with it. We took another taxi back home. During the ride, Veronica put her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Grandma, of your bravery." I hugged her. "I'm proud of you too, my love. You saved us. If you hadn't been home yesterday, if you hadn't listened, if you hadn't acted, I would be in a cell right now, and you would be in some foster home. Thank you for being brave." We arrived home at noon. The house looked different, brighter, quieter. As if by reporting Benjamin, we had released something dark that had been living within these walls. I prepared lunch. Vegetable soup, homemade bread. We ate in silence, a comfortable silence. The silence of two people who had gone through a storm and survived. After lunch, Veronica went to her room to rest. I stayed in the kitchen washing the dishes, looking out the window toward the garden, toward the place where we had buried the drugs. The forensics team would come tomorrow to retrieve them, to analyze them, to confirm our story. The phone rang. My heart stopped. What if it was Benjamin? What if he had found out we went to the police? What if he came with more threats? But when I answered, it was Detective Smith. Mrs. Edith, I have news. We found Monica. Her full name is Monica Herrera. She's your son's girlfriend. They've been living together for the last 6 months. She made the anonymous call from her cell phone. We got the records. We also found messages between her and your son planning everything. They are arresting both of them right now. My legs gave out. I sat on the kitchen floor with the phone to my ear. Arresting? Now? Yes, Ma'am. We have enough evidence. Your recording. The text messages. The call record. The drugs we recovered this afternoon from your garden. Your son's fingerprints are on the baggie. It's a solid case. They won't get out of this easily. How long? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. How long will they be in prison? That will depend on the judge. But with all the charges, they could face between 5 and 10 years each. Maybe more if the judge decides it was premeditated, which it clearly was. I hung up the phone. I stayed sitting on the kitchen floor, crying. I didn't know if it was from relief or sadness, maybe both. My son was going to jail, my own son, the baby I had held in my arms, the child I had raised, the man I had trusted. He was going to spend years in a cell, and I was responsible. I had reported him. I had handed over the evidence. I had put him there. But I also knew I hadn't had a choice, that I had done the right thing, that protecting Veronica was more important than protecting Benjamin. The following days were strange. The house was calm, but I wasn't. Veronica went back to school. I continued with my routine. I made breakfast, I cleaned, I cooked, I watered the plants, everything the same, everything different. Because now every time I looked at the phone, I expected news. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart raced. I lived in constant anticipation, waiting for the detective to call, waiting for them to tell me what would happen with Benjamin, waiting for all this to finally end. A week after the arrest, I received a call from Detective Smith. Mrs. Edith, I need you to come to the station. There's something you need to know. I went alone. Veronica was at school, and I didn't want to worry her more than necessary. The detective met me in his office. I sat across from his desk, piled with folders and papers. Benjamin wants to talk to you, he said. He's detained, awaiting trial. He says he needs to see you, that he needs to explain something. I shook my head. I don't want to see him. I have nothing to say to him, nor he to me. The detective sighed. I understand. But there's something else. Monica is cooperating with us. She's giving information. She says everything was your son's idea, that he manipulated her, that she was just following orders. She's trying to reduce her sentence. And you believe her? I asked. Partially. The messages show that they planned everything together. But it's true that Benjamin was the one directing. He had the information. He knew your routines. He knew how much the house was worth. Monica was just his accomplice. I felt something bitter in my mouth. My son hadn't just betrayed me. He had dragged another person into his plan. He had corrupted someone else. The trial will be in 2 months, the detective continued. You will have to testify, both you and Veronica. You will have to tell everything in front of a judge. in front of Benjamin, in front of lawyers who will try to discredit your story. They will say you are framing him, that the recording is edited, that Veronica is lying. You will have to be prepared for that. You will have to be strong. I don't know, I said honestly, but we will do it anyway, because it's the right thing to do. The detective nodded. I'm going to assign you a social worker, someone who can help Veronica process this. She's very young to be carrying so much. There are also support groups for victims of family fraud. It might help you to talk to other people who went through something similar. I left the station feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. 2 months. 2 months until the trial. 2 months of living with this anguish, of waiting, of preparing to face Benjamin in a courtroom, of having to relive everything again, in front of strangers, in front of him. I didn't know if I would have the strength, but I had to find it. For Veronica, for me, for all the mothers who have been betrayed and need to know that they can survive, that they can move forward, that they can be strong even when everything falls apart. That night I told Veronica about the trial, about what we would have to do. She listened in silence. Then she said, I can do it, Grandma. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm not afraid of him. Not anymore. I hugged her, my brave granddaughter, my strong granddaughter. She was only 14 years old, but she had shown more courage than many adults. She had saved me. She had saved both of us. And now we would face whatever came next together. The 2 months passed slowly. Some nights I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake thinking about Benjamin, about how we got to this point, about all the signs I ignored over the years, about all the times I justified his behavior, his selfishness, his lies. I always found excuses. He's tired, he's stressed, he just lost his wife. But the truth was that Benjamin had always been like this. I simply didn't want to see it, because seeing it meant accepting that I had failed as a mother, that the son I raised wasn't who I thought he was. But over time, I started to understand something. I hadn't failed. I had done everything I could with what I had. I gave him love, education, values, opportunities. But in the end, each person chooses who they will be. Benjamin chose greed. He chose betrayal. He chose money over family. And that wasn't my fault. It was his choice, his responsibility, not mine. The day of the trial arrived. I dressed in my best clothes, a simple grey dress, comfortable black shoes. Veronica wore a dark green dress I had bought her for the holidays. We looked presentable, respectable, strong. We took a taxi to the courthouse. It was a huge building, white columns, marble stairs, long cold hallways. We sat on a bench outside the courtroom, waiting to be called. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Finally, we were called. We entered the courtroom. It was large, with wooden benches, a high stand where the judge sat, tables for the lawyers, and there, at one of the tables, was Benjamin. I saw him, and something in my chest broke. He looked different, thinner, paler, with deep circles under his eyes. He wore a suit that was too big for him, as if he had lost weight in these weeks. Our eyes met for a second. I saw something in his eyes. Regret? Shame? I don't know. I looked away. I couldn't look at him. Not yet. The trial began. The lawyers spoke. They presented evidence. They showed the recordings, the messages, the forensic tests. Everything was there. Clear. Irrefutable. Then I was called to testify. I walked to the stand with trembling legs. I put my hand on the Bible. I swore to tell the truth. And I did. I told my story, from the beginning, without crying, without hesitation, with a firm voice, because it was the truth. And the truth doesn't need embellishment. Then Veronica was called. My granddaughter walked to the stand with her head held high. She answered every question clearly, with courage. She looked her father directly in the eyes as she told how she saw him enter the house, how she heard him conspire, how she recorded his confession. She didn't tremble. She didn't cry. She was incredible. Benjamin's lawyer tried to confuse her, to make her doubt. But she didn't give in. She maintained her story, firm, consistent, true. The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of testimonies, of evidence, of lawyers arguing, of Benjamin sitting in silence looking at the floor. He never spoke. He never testified in his defense. His lawyer tried to argue that it had been a moment of desperation, that debts had pushed him to do something terrible, that he regretted it deeply. But the evidence was too clear. The messages with Monica showed weeks of planning, of conspiracy. It wasn't an impulse. It was premeditated, calculated, cold. Monica did testify. She went to the stand crying, asking for forgiveness, saying that Benjamin had manipulated her, that she loved him, that she would do anything for him, even something as horrible as this. The prosecutor asked her if she knew I was an old woman, if she knew Veronica was just a child, if she knew that what they were doing would destroy a family. She nodded to everything, crying harder, saying she regretted it, that she wished she could turn back time. But she couldn't. The damage was done. The consequences were inevitable. On the 3rd day, the judge delivered his verdict. We all stood up. The judge was an older man, grey hair, thick glasses, serious expression. He looked at the papers in front of him. Then he looked at Benjamin. "Mr. Benjamin Vargas," he said in a grave voice, "you have been found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, possession of controlled substances with intent to defraud, intimidation, false call to authorities, and financial abuse against an elderly adult. These are serious crimes, crimes that demonstrate a total lack of moral values, a betrayal of the person who loved you the most, your own mother." The judge paused. The courtroom was in absolute silence. "I have read your story," he continued. "I have seen the evidence. I have heard the testimonies. And I must say that it is one of the most disturbing cases I have seen in my 30 years as a judge. You not only tried to rob your mother, you tried to destroy her. You tried to have her arrested for a crime she did not commit. You tried to separate her from her granddaughter, all for money, for a house, for greed. And you did it without remorse, without hesitation, planning it for weeks with your accomplice." Benjamin still had his head down, motionless, without reacting. The judge continued, "Therefore, I sentence you to 8 years in prison, without possibility of parole during the first 4 years. Additionally, you will have a permanent restraining order against your mother and your daughter. You cannot approach them. You cannot contact them. You will have no rights over your mother's properties. This sentence is effective immediately." He slammed the gavel against the table. The sound echoed throughout the room. 8 years. My son would spend 8 years in prison. Monica received 5 years. Because she cooperated with the investigation, her sentence was reduced. But she would still go to jail. Both were taken away by the officers. Benjamin passed in front of me. He stopped for a second. "Mum," he whispered. "I'm sorry." I looked at him. For the first time in days, I looked at him directly. There was no forgiveness in my eyes, no love, only exhaustion, only sadness. "Don't talk to me," I said. "Don't ever talk to me again." He nodded. A tear rolled down his cheek. Then the officers took him away, and he disappeared through a door at the back of the room. Maybe it was the last time I would see him. Maybe not. I didn't know. And at that moment, I didn't care. We left the courthouse. The sun was shining outside. It was a beautiful day, blue sky, birds singing, people walking in the streets. Life continued, as always. Veronica took my hand. "Are you okay, Grandma?" I nodded. "Yes, my love. I'm okay. We did it," she asked. "Yes, we did it." We walked toward the taxi stand. My legs felt heavy. My heart, too. But there was something else. Something like peace. Like liberation. As if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Detective Smith caught up with us before we got into the taxi. "Mrs. Edith, I want you to know something. You did the right thing. I know it was difficult. I know it hurt. But you protected your granddaughter. You protected yourself. And that takes extraordinary courage. Many people in your situation would have stayed silent. They would have let it happen. Out of shame. Out of fear. But you fought. And you won. That is admirable." I thanked him. He left. We got into the taxi. During the ride home, neither of us said anything. We just held hands, looking out the window, watching the city pass by. When we arrived home, everything looked the same yellow door, the same windows, the same garden. But something had changed. It was no longer the house where Benjamin had grown up. It was no longer the place of betrayal. Now it was just our home, Veronica's and mine, a safe place, a place where we could start over. I walked in and looked around. The living room, the kitchen, the photos on the walls. There were pictures of Benjamin when he was a child, when he graduated, when he got married. I looked at them for a long time. Then I took them down, one by one, not with anger, with sadness, but I took them down. "What are you going to do with them?" Veronica asked. "I'm going to store them, in a box, in the basement. Maybe someday I can look at them without pain. Maybe not. But for now, I need them not to be here. I need space to heal." Veronica helped me. We packed away all of Benjamin's photos, all his memories, everything that made us think of him. We took it down to the basement. When we finished, the house felt lighter, more ours. That night I made dinner, roasted chicken with vegetables, Veronica's favorite dish. We ate at the kitchen table. We talked about simple things, about school, about homework, about a friend of Veronica's who had invited her to her birthday party. Normal things, everyday things. And it felt good. It felt like living again. After dinner, Veronica helped me wash the dishes. Then we watched a movie together in the living room. A comedy. We laughed. We really laughed, for the first time in weeks. When Veronica went to sleep, I stayed alone in the living room for a while longer. I turned off the television. I sat in the silence. I thought about everything that had happened, about how a normal morning had turned into a nightmare, about how my granddaughter had saved me, about how we had fought together, about how we had won. It wasn't the victory I would have wanted. It wasn't the ending I would have chosen. But it was justice. And it was peace. And for now, that was enough. 6 months passed since the trial. 6 months of rebuilding our lives, of learning to live without fear, without expecting someone to knock on the door with bad intentions, without checking the pockets of my coat every morning, without looking over my shoulder. The house felt like a home again, not a battleground. Veronica flourished. Her grades improved. She made new friends. She joined the school drama club. I saw her perform in a play last month. She played a detective who solved a mystery. She was perfect in the role. Natural, confident, brilliant. I also changed. I started going to a support group, as Detective Smith suggested. Other mothers who had been betrayed by their children. Other grandmothers who had had to choose between love and justice. At first, I didn't want to go. I was ashamed to admit what had happened. But when I arrived and heard the stories of the others, I realized I wasn't alone. That the pain I felt was shared. That the guilt I was carrying wasn't mine. A woman named Gloria had lost her house because her son forged her signature. Another named Jasmine had been hit by her son when she refused to give him money. Terrible stories, but also stories of survival, of women who kept going. I learned something important in those months. I learned that a mother's love doesn't mean allowing everything. It doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It doesn't mean accepting abuse because it comes from your own blood. True love also includes boundaries. It includes saying no. It includes protecting yourself and those who depend on you. And sometimes the most difficult love is the one that forces you to let go. To accept that the person you raised chose a path you cannot follow. One spring afternoon, I was in the garden planting new tomato seeds. The previous ones had died during the winter. But it was time to start over. Veronica came out of the house with 2 glasses of cold lemonade. She sat next to me on the grass. "Grandma, do you ever think about him?" she asked. "Every day," I admitted. "But it doesn't hurt as much anymore. It doesn't keep me awake at night. It's like a scar. It's still there, but it doesn't bleed anymore." She nodded. "I think about him too. He was my dad. Part of me still misses him. The part that remembers when he read me stories before bed, when he taught me how to ride a bike. But then I remember what he did, and the affection is mixed with disappointment." "It's normal to feel both," I told her. "You can miss the dad he was and at the same time reject the man he became. You don't have to choose just one feeling. Humans are complicated. We can hold contradictory emotions at the same time." We drank our lemonade in silence. The sun warmed our backs. The flowers I had planted last year were blooming. Roses, daisies, sunflowers. Everything was growing. Everything was living. Despite the storm we had been through, despite the pain, life continued. And so did we. I received a letter from Benjamin 2 weeks ago. It arrived with the prison seal. I stared at the envelope for an hour before opening it. Part of me wanted to burn it without reading it, but another part needed to know what it said. Finally, I opened it. The letter was short. It said he was sorry, that he had had a lot of time to think, that he realized what he had done, that he didn't expect forgiveness, but wanted me to know that his regret was real, that he had started therapy in prison, that he was trying to understand why he became what he became, that maybe someday, many years from now, he could look me in the eyes again without shame. I read the letter twice, then I put it away in a drawer. I didn't tear it up, but I didn't answer either. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. And that was okay. Forgiveness is not something that can be forced. It is not something owed out of obligation. It is something that happens when the heart is ready, if it ever is ready. For now, my heart needed to heal. It needed to focus on Veronica, on me, on rebuilding what Benjamin had tried to destroy. I changed my will. I went to a different lawyer. I explained the whole situation. We drafted a new document, clear, specific. The house would go to Veronica when I died. Benjamin would have no rights, not even if he got out of prison, not even if he apologized. This decision wasn't out of revenge, it was for protection, to ensure that Veronica always had a home, a safe place, a place that no one could take from her. The lawyer assured me that the document was solid, that there was no way to contest it. I felt relieved. One evening, Veronica and I were sitting on the sofa. She was doing her math homework. I was reading a book. Suddenly, she closed her notebook. "Grandma, thank you." "For what, my love?" "For believing me, for protecting me, for being brave." Many grandmothers in your situation would have chosen their son. They would have said I was lying, that I was confused. But you believed me from the very beginning, and that meant everything to me. I hugged her. "I will always believe you. I will always protect you. You are the most important thing in my life, my reason for going on." The months continued to pass. Summer arrived. Veronica finished the school year with honors. We celebrated with her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with strawberries. I invited some of her friends. The house was filled with laughter, with music, with life. And I realized that we had achieved something incredible. We hadn't just survived. We had healed. We had found joy again, despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the pain. We were still here, stronger, more united, wiser. One August afternoon, I was sitting on the porch. Veronica had gone to a friend's house. I had the house to myself. The sky was painted orange and pink. The sunset was beautiful. I thought about the entire journey, from that terrible morning when Veronica told me she felt sick, when she unknowingly saved me from a trap that could have destroyed me. I thought about how a 14-year-old girl had more courage than many adults, about how she confronted her own father to protect me, about how her love for me was stronger than her fear. And I thought about myself, about the woman I was and the woman I became. Before all this, I was naive. I trusted blindly, especially my son. I believed that blood was thicker than water, that family love was unbreakable. But I learned that sometimes blood lies, that sometimes family love is one-sided, that trusting is fine, but verifying is necessary, that protecting yourself is not selfishness, it's survival, and that saying no to a son who is hurting you doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you a wise mother. The sun set completely. The stars began to appear, one by one, like promises in the dark sky, promises that the sun would rise again tomorrow, that life would continue, that pain would eventually turn into a lesson, into strength, into wisdom. I got up from the porch. I went into the house. I turned on the lights. I made tea. I sat in my favorite armchair. And for the first time in many months, I felt complete peace, true peace, the peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing, that you protected what you needed to protect, that you survived what you needed to survive. Veronica arrived an hour later. She walked in smiling. She told me about her afternoon, about the jokes with her friend, about the plans for the next school year. I listened to her carefully, with love, with gratitude for having her, for being her grandmother, for sharing this life with her. When she went to sleep, I stayed awake for a little longer. I looked around the house, the yellow walls, the clock marking the moment 11 hours, 0 minutes, the plants in the window, everything in its place, everything at peace. This was my house, my home, and no one would ever take it from me.